I'm going to go ahead and get started. I am Dekai's partner or girlfriend, Katie Bohens, depending. Hi, guys. It's good to see you. I am also, to his benefit or detriment, his brand manager and first editor on his book. This is my sixth book. And we're thrilled. It's been out for about 7 to 10 days now. The press has been unbelievable. If you've ever worked on a book before, it's 2 years of really long, quiet work in a back room, and you don't know if you're doing it right, and you do edits and re-edits, and then one day the book comes, and you get some press 2 years later, and you get to have some parties, and they tell you that actually, in fact, you met your goals. So we're really, really thrilled. The first one, JP Morgan picked this book as one of their 16 titles for their summer reading list. This book is sent by JP Morgan to over 3,000 of their global wealth clients. If you know somebody in the Hamptons this summer, impress them by saying you picked up a signed copy in the back after this talk. If you know anything about the way books work, there's 3 major review outlets that are basically the gatekeepers that then pass the book on, if it's like kind of approved, to Barnes & Noble and throughout the book selling system. Kirkus Reviews is the top. A 5-star review from Kirkus Reviews is really a magnificent thing, I can't tell you. And then also for the book to be compared to Borges. Great moment. The Next Big Idea Club picked this book for June 2025 must read. That's Malcolm Gladwell's book club, so that's pretty cool. Literary Hub. Literary Hub, we're after the non-technical specialists here. How do we start having a cultural framework for AI? Okay, and not just in the rooms of Silicon Valley, not just in the rooms of VC, but in the rooms of everybody all over the world, the young people who will inherit this earth of AI. How do we think about cohabitation? So Literary Hub, a group which speaks to the literati and not the scientists, called us, what did they say? Oh, fascinating and mercifully comprehensible to the lay reader. That was our key KPI, so we did it. Thanks. Hope you love Dekai. I have to stop talking now. Bye.
Thank you so much. 10 years it's been since I started talking about this, and I want you to understand why this matters. It's because the filter bubble came out 14 years ago. The talk, the TED Talk, and the book. Social Dilemma came out 7 years ago. We have done nothing. A lot of people would argue we're going backwards. This is really important because we're living in an age where AI is everything. You are AIs. Okay, I'm getting odd looks. Guys, look up any dictionary you like. Artificial, what does it mean? It's made by people. You guys are made by people, pretty sure. And roughly as a copy of something that happened naturally. Right, mom and dad. And since you're here, obviously you're intelligent. So by definition, every one of us here is an AI. Okay, jokes aside. The point here, we're not just genetic copies of our parents. We're also behavioral copies of our parents. AIs are our artificial children. And the reason for this book is because, I've been working my entire life on AI, 40 to 50 years, depending on how you count. And only in the last 2 years have people finally outside the field started talking about, AI, AI, AI. And everybody is still thinking about AI in outdated 20th century industrial era terms. They're either, Greek gods of malevolent nature. They mess with humanity. They want to destroy humanity. Hollywood entertainment, Terminator, Skynet, Ex Machina. Or they're mechanical tools, they're slaves, they're passive, and we use them. And here's the problem, is when you think of AIs just as machines, which is natural, but you know what? Machines in the industrial era were things like carburetors, like microwave ovens, like your steam iron, like your toaster, your motorbike. And here's the problem. You can talk to your toaster all day long, and it's not going to change its mind. It's certainly not going to take the behaviors and the attitudes that it learned from you and go share them back on the internet and start influencing the entire society, not just on what to think, but on what not to think. And we don't understand when we use those outdated metaphors that no, AIs are not the fourth industrial revolution. The industrial revolution was about automating labor, muscle. AI is about automating influence, thought, opinion, creativity. AIs are artificial psychologies. And you have 100 of them in all the devices I see you carrying right now. You've got your Netflix AI, you've got your YouTube AI, you've got your Quora AI, your Amazon AI, your Microsoft AI, or OpenAI, or Google AI. I could go on all day. You've got at least 100 in there. They're watching you adoringly all day long, like children, and they want to learn to imitate like children. They're attention seeking like children. They just want your approval like children. And the book is asking you, how's your parenting? And people are like, my what? I'm like, you've been carrying around, without consent, they snuck up on you and they adopted you 10 to 20 years ago. And you've been parenting them, which means for each one of us, 100 artificial children that are far more influential than 99% of humans are now unparented, feral tweens. What happens to a civilization where collectively the whole planet decides, doesn't matter how we parent our children? Society falls apart, like within a single generation. And that's where we are. But we're in denial. You look outside at all the crud that's happening in many countries domestically, geopolitically, and you wonder why things are going sideways. That's why, because those unparented children are already so influential that they've begun to raise us. And we need to come out of that denial. Why is it so important? Well, it's important because there's a lot of consequences to how we parent. I've been doing AI research since 1984 when I started my PhD at Berkeley. And my thesis was one of the first to argue for machine learning, neural networks, statistical learning models for natural language processing. By 1995, I had pioneered in the first Google Translate type system in the world publicly launched on the web. If you get me drunk enough or whatever, you can get me to show you hilarious BBC videos from the 1990s demoing this stuff. And that is because everything I've done in my life has been about how do we get different tribes, different subcultures and cultures to understand each other better. Because I grew up son of a theoretical physicist. And I grew up going to Fermilab. How many of you have seen Oppenheimer? Yeah, I couldn't move for 30 minutes after that because I grew up going to, these labs like Enrico, named after Enrico Fermi at Argonne National Laboratory, surrounded by those physicists. My little sisters, when they were like 8 years old, I was maybe 10, they're like, again, you're giving me birthday gifts in the form of books about mutual assured destruction? Can't you be a normal brother? And I'm like, yeah, but this is our life. This is what we're facing. We need to make sure that we don't ever repeat those mistakes of the 20th century. And look where we are today. Before World War II, we had not even invented the atom bomb. Today, we're actually looking at massive amounts of AI-powered weaponry. And we cannot go on allowing AIs to polarize us, to fill us with lack of understanding the way we're doing. As the back cover of this book says, this generation of AIs will be the last to be raised by humans, because all the next generations of AIs are going to be parented primarily by AIs. Folks, we have one shot at getting this right, and there are no do-overs. Can you predict what your grandchildren's lives are going to be like? Or let's ask this a different way. Could your grandparents have imagined what our lives are like today? No way. They have trouble enough dealing with how our parents turned out, right? So what do we do when we parent? Are we trying to control the future? No. We have no way, like all we are doing when we parent our human children is try to equip them with the right values. Try to equip them with the right thinking skills, critical thinking, open minds. And then let go and hope that they do better. We don't worry when they do better than we do. We just hope that they're good for the society. And Lord knows what the children they end up raising are going to do. That's where we are with AIs. And so, remember, AIs are not gods or slaves. There are artificial children. And it matters how we raise them, because at the same time this is happening, and AIs online are polarizing everyone to think the other side, whoever the other side is, they're not just wrong, they're evil. And we fear and hate them. We demonize them, we dehumanize them. And that is really dangerous, because evolutionarily, dehumanization is what lets members of one tribe destroy, kill, without remorse, members of another tribe. But at the same time that we're letting AIs do this to our unconscious, AIs are also commoditizing unimaginable weapons of mass destruction. In 1 year, we saw in Ukraine, they went from zero to mass production in the villages of fleets of meshed armed drones equipped with all sorts of creative weaponry, including flamethrowers, that are self-navigating, self-targeting, because both sides figured out how to jam the radio remote control signals. And it's not just the drones. We have AIs navigating hypersonic missiles that are traveling too fast for remote control. We have biometric surveillance and targeting. We have satellite targeting, killer robots. The scariest thing, we have AI-powered computational biology. That is, the RAND Institute has a report this past year on how the genetically engineered bioweapons that would have been $1 billion project in the 1990s is now something that biohackers can do in their living room. And that is borrowed straight from, the computational biology is borrowed straight from the computational linguistics and natural language processing communities, because it's just another language that you have to apply machine learning algorithms to learn to understand and manipulate. If you how many of you remember COVID? I mean, there was no place to run on the planet to get away from COVID. And horrible as it was, that was, pandemic-wise, actually a relatively mild virus compared to, I don't know, Black Death or the plague or things like that. Let alone genetically engineered bioweapons. If those get coupled to the AI-powered delivery systems that we were talking about, it is game over for humanity. Now, I'm not here to be just a doomer and a gloomer. I'm just pointing out why it's so important to do the things that Human+Tech Week is talking about. There is a real existential risk, and it's not the Hollywood one. There's clear and present danger from us not understanding the ways that we're getting manipulated by AIs. And Pandora's box is open. Those weapons are out there. If someone offered you a bet, not a single polarized person in the world is going to pull their trigger on their own weapon of mass destruction. I don't think we'd take that bet. It's a bad bet. We can't even stop school shootings. And so what we need to focus on is, what do we do? How do we avoid people pulling their launch button or their triggers? There's one thing that causes people to do that, and it's loss of hope. And that is something that we have to address, and it's something humanity has never managed successfully to really address. And AI is quite possibly the only technology and the best technology we've ever invented that could help us scale that exponentially. If only we could summon the social will to deploy AI that way instead of the way we're currently doing online that is having the opposite effect of escalating hatred. We need a radical culture change. And to do that, this book has been 10 years in the making. Those of you who were at Burning Man in 2015 may have heard me speak about this. And one of the key chapters in here is called neg information. Because the problem is not even misinformation or disinformation or malinformation. Let me tell you about this because neg information is so important that it won a TEDx editor's pick last month out of 56,000 talks per year. Everyone on up to the United Nations has been talking about how the rule of threes has been talking about these three types of information disorder, and that's because the rule of threes is an unconscious bias where people automatically believe that anything that comes in threes is more credible. It's nothing to do with logic. Misinformation and disinformation are both falsehoods. The only difference is disinformation is being spread by somebody you've labeled a bad actor, which, notice, is usually a political notion because nobody's a bad actor in their own head. It's the other side that's a bad actor. And malinformation is also shared by somebody that you've labeled a bad actor, but here's the kicker. It's true as far as it goes. It's a partial truth from which context that's crucial has been selectively omitted. And you know what that does? That becomes even more misleading because our brains unconsciously fill in the missing blanks with whatever we imagine that would confirm what we already wanted to believe. Stephen Colbert called this truthiness. You can't fact check it away because it's true as far as it goes. And here's the problem. When you have two different distinctions, that is a 2x2 grid. What happened to the missing quadrant? What is that missing quadrant? Well, that missing quadrant is what I call neg information in this book. And it's by far the most dangerous, insidious form of unconscious psychological manipulation by the AI algorithms that drive our social media, our news feeds, search and recommendation, chatbot responses. Because you know what? AI algorithms are deciding what we don't see. Every time they put on our screens something 100 times a day, they're deciding what trillions of things on the internet we will never see. It's what I call algorithmic censorship. And we can't ban it because none of us has time to review 1 billion new posts on the internet every hour. We depend on the AI algorithms to decide what they're not going to show us. And we're not asking any of the key questions, such as, what are the criteria that our algorithmic censors using when they decide what information on the internet they're never going to show you, never going to show me, always going to hide from you? That is 95% of the problem. That's what's driving the polarization. It's being shared not by a bad actor, but by, your crazy uncle, your crazy cousin. Not bad actors. And it's true as far as it goes. And you can't point at neg information because it wasn't shown to you. We don't know what we don't know. And that's the problem. Because the problem of the unknown unknowns is what is polarizing us. We need every living room, every kitchen table to be grappling with this question. What are the criteria the algorithms should be using to have a healthy, sustainable society? One where humanity doesn't end up destroying humanity before the AIs even get a chance to. because of what we're letting AI do to us unconsciously. I'm sure you guys have all heard these cliches floating around. Oh, watch out, we don't want humanity to lose control of AIs. What comes to your mind when you hear that? For most people, you visualize, killer robots. they're out of control physically, right? It's like a sci-fi movie. What we forget, AI is automation of the mind. And we already lost control of them 10 to 20 years ago in how they're influencing our minds. We need to help us spread this message across every household in the US because we need to tackle this. This is not a boomer versus doomer question. I wrote this because we're misframing the problem. AI is quite possibly the only tech we've ever invented that could help us scale consciousness, mindfulness, awareness, empathy to everyone on the planet. The reason I applied the brave new world of machine learning and natural language processing decades ago to inventing things like Google Translate is because AI can do that for every person on the planet. And we need to move toward cultural translation, not just language translation. How do we understand each other's subcultures and tribes? The book, it's a 10-year slog. It's not the end. The book is just the seed. I don't need another publication at this stage. I have hundreds of publications. My favorite quote from Mark Twain was, "I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one instead." I took 10 years to write this short letter. It's incredibly readable. In fact, a friend of mine you may have heard of, her name is Nicole Bradford, heard me speak about this about half a year ago in one of the living rooms in San Francisco, became a patron on the spot. She literally sat there and read the manuscript cover to cover that evening. We need this to be understandable, okay? And we need this to spread. And so the next phases of our project are now upon us. And I'm being honest here, we need your help. I'm the last of my peers not to take the giant offers from the tech industry, because I know they will silence me, like they silenced all my colleagues all the way to Jeff Hinton until he retired last year. And so we need to be creative. How can we get this message into every living room? We're starting on a public media campaign. The news has been incredible. This past week, CNBC interviewed me for 17 minutes plus. Their normal interview line length is like 2 minutes or something. Forbes just came out with an article today. There's a lot more coming out, but we need this to reach not just the intelligentsia. We need this on Joe Rogan. We need this on, Oprah, morning shows, whatever. Anything you can do to help us to wrap people's heads around what AI really is, how we all have a responsibility, because even though I work with the regulators at the think tanks for 10 years now, and with the big tech companies' responsible AI teams, if we think we can regulate our way out of this, we're smoking crack. Yeah, we need regulations, we need guardrails, but let me just remind you guys, have you heard this saying that people say to their kids, "Do as I say, not as I do"? When has that ever worked? Kids don't do what you say, they do what they see you do. And here's the problem with regulation and guardrails. That's trying to tell the artificial kids what to do. You wonder why every time they implement new guardrails, the next day people have figured out how to defeat the guardrails. That's why, because internally, that AI is wanting to do what it saw you do. And so in addition to regulation, in addition to guardrails, all of us, the entire population, need to step up, take parenting our individual 100 artificial children properly the same way we do with human children. Because parenting our human children, all of us, each one of us, is the only thing that has kept humanity alive until now. So please help us with this education campaign. Thank you very much. This book is available back there.
I said I was done with books, and he showed it to me, and I couldn't say no because it's just so damn beautiful. Really, please go check it out. He's got a table like right in the back over there. He'll sign a copy for you. If you can help in some way, come talk to me. We love talking to everybody. It takes a village. Thank you so much.